All right, we got a lot of Roman history talking about Cicero, both as background to the the narrative setup of De Republica and the background of Cicero's life and events of his time period. What I skipped in the middle there was one other event. So you have the Punic Wars, and then you have the events that we're going to talk about today. The rise and fall of the Gracchi brothers, Tiberius Gracchus and Gaius Gracchus. They were both early populares. They both supported land reform. That's that question of what are we going to, we have all this land owned by senators, and that we need to divide that up so that all of these poor people can make a living, and that we have more citizen soldiers. We need to put everything back on a even keel. They were roughly contemporaries with that younger Scipio Aemilianus. He was their brother-in-law and adopted cousin. So they were small world once you get up into the elites. So they were patricians, but they were populares. They were supporters of reforms that would have helped out the poor instead of solidifying the power of the Optimates. Tiberius Gracchus was the elder by 9 years. He's described as having a calmer demeanor, and he seeks to address the growing poverty by redistributing the land that had illegally been obtained by the rich and was being worked by that growing slave population. And at first, he said, hey, we'll pay you for it. That's like that idea of eminent domain. We're going to seize property for public good, but with just compensation. We'll pay you for it. The senators, the people who own the property, were not interested in that. And then he got the idea to revive a power that the tribunes possessed that had not been used in a very long time, or possibly ever. And that is that tribunes could propose legislation directly to the assembly of the people. These are called plebiscites. So normally legislation was proposed by the Senate, or proposed by the consuls and voted on by the Senate. But the tribunes had the power to go over or under the heads of that and go directly to the people. And so he does that. He proposes this land reform act and wants to take it directly to the people. Now, the thing with the tribunes is there's 10 of them. Any one tribune can block another tribune. So the senators bribe a fellow tribune to block the legislation. And so Tiberius takes the stand that he makes the argument that if the tribunes of the plebs are not serving the interests of the plebs, then the people, the plebs, have the right to depose them and replace them with somebody else. So he gets the people to depose the guy and literally like to take hold of him and drag him down from the rostrum so he couldn't speak anymore, to pull him down. That violated the principle of the inviolability of the tribunes. You weren't supposed to lay hands on the tribunes. That was part of their protection to keep them from being attacked by the Senate. So he violated the inviolability of the office of the tribune and had done this unprecedented thing of saying a tribune could be deposed. By these means, though, he gets his Land Redistribution Act passed. And he appoints himself and his family members to oversee the land redistribution. And the Senate then starts attacking his reputation, the all-important thing in Rome. They couldn't stop him, although they did force him to break the law. They couldn't stop him, so they start spreading rumors that, look, this isn't about you guys. This isn't about helping the plebs. He wants to be king. He wants a crown. Look at him consolidating power. And it all comes to a head finally when they manage to get they managed to get the people to question him, and he is beaten to death in the forum, in public. This is the first time that you've had to quote Monty Python, the violence inherent in the system, break out in the public sphere like this, where you now have the optimates versus the populares killing each other in public over a political dispute. To appease the people, then, having killed Tiberius, the Senate then allowed the land redistribution to happen. So, again, tarnishing his reputation even after death. See, he said we were against this, but look, we're not against this. We're just against his ambition. But now we've taken care of that. So they beat him to death, threw his body in the Tiber to deny him a burial. That was a very dishonorable way to happen. That had also happened. Sulla had done that to the bones of Marius, had taken them out of his tomb and thrown them in the Tiber. So very dishonorable. Few years later, little brother Gaius, following on his older brother's footsteps, but Gaius has a less easygoing personality. He's a more fiery orator, more of a demagogue, more rile the crowd up himself. And he used the political murder of his brother to his advantage in his speeches. Apparently, he was also a fidgeter. He picked at his clothes a lot when he talked. And he did this interesting rhetorical thing. It had been tradition when speaking in the forum to face the Senate, even though you're obviously talking to the people in the forum, but I'm going to face the Senate like I'm addressing them, asking the fathers of the people to do something good for the people. Now, Gaius starts talking, putting his back to the forum and facing the people and talking directly to them. He was proposing another hot button issue in Rome: who could be citizens, because citizenship gave you perks. And so he proposed making all the Latin allies in Italy citizens. Well, this is something that the Senate didn't like, because that dilutes their power. That's people that they don't have so much power with. Become citizens, and they would all of those new citizens would feel like a client relationship. They'd feel loyalty to Gaius. The Senate again uses another tribune against him, and this time they doubled down on what they had done before. Instead of getting somebody to oppose him, they got one of the other tribunes to play one-upsmanship. So similar to when they backed the land redistribution after they'd just beaten a guy to death because he had passed the land redistribution, they get another tribune to propose even more bigger and more popular laws so that Gaius looks stingy. So instead of proposing 2 colonies that would give land to moderately wealthy Romans, no, we're going to have 12 colonies, and we're going to give those cities to really poor Romans. See, he's a skinflint. He's very stingy. They plot to assassinate him as well. He was trying to escape the plot, and they managed to get one of his own servants to turn on him. So thus led the second political death, and that happened just about 20 years later is when you then get, after you've gotten violence and murder introduced into the precedent of political activity in Rome. About 20 years later is when Marius reforms the military. 20 years after that, Sulla has his dictatorship and his kill lists. 20 years after that, you get the Catiline conspiracy to overthrow the consul, and let's get rid of this whole traditional way of amassing political power. Let's just seize it. And it's only a few years after that that you get Caesar forming the first triumvirate and ending the Republic. So those are the events leading up to the fall of the Republic. And next week, we will turn to Caesar and how that all went down and what came next.